The Samhain festival, originating in ancient Ireland, is a religious holiday that laid the roots for what we know today as Halloween. The Celtic festival began when harvest was over and summer began to turn into winter. During this time frame, the people of Ireland believed that the veil between the physical and spiritual world was opened up, allowing ghosts to travel back to Earth. A main tradition to begin the festival was initiating huge bonfires around the community. The bonfires were used as a protection and cleansing of the community. Surrounding these bonfires were people dressed in costumes made of animal heads and skins. Another large tradition for this night was that people believed that it was easier for priests to make predictions. The priests' predictions of the future were the source of the entire community's plans for the winter. One of the mainstays of Samhain and Halloween is the jack-o'-lantern. Traditional Irish tales tell us that poor Jack first guarded a turnip to place a burning ember to light his wanderings for all time, since neither heaven nor hell would accept his soul. Irish immigrants found that pumpkins were more plentiful than turnips in America, forever changing the traditional jack-o'-lantern to the carved pumpkin today. Sweets were used to bribe spirits if one was caught. Trick-or-treating starting as souling, singing verses, to guising, performing, telling jokes, and busking. Unlike old times when costumes on Halloween had an actual purpose, today Halloween is an extremely commercialized holiday where the focus is no longer viewed as a day of fearing the dead. The way we celebrate has changed dramatically. The costumes promoted in society today are either cute costumes for children or over-sexualized costumes for women. We have lost the initial grounds of why we celebrate Halloween in the first place.
While Halloween has largely replaced Samhain across the Western world, there are still witches, Wiccans, and pagans who celebrate the Samhain festival as a new year. As the Irish word Samhain literally means summer's end, it was viewed by the ancient Celtic peoples as their end-of-year harvest and beginning of the new year. One of the key aspects of the Samhain festival is food. Today we'll be showing you how to make two traditional treats, soul cakes and candied apples. Soul cakes date back to the Middle Ages and are a small biscuit-type cake. To make them, you will need the following: 1 cup or 8 ounces of butter, 3 3/4 cup sifted flour, 1 cup fine sugar. If fine sugar is not available, regular granulated sugar can be substituted or processed into fine sugar with a food processor. 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg, 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1 teaspoon of allspice, 2 eggs, and finally 2 teaspoons apple cider vinegar and 4 to 6 tablespoons milk. You will also need some powdered sugar to sprinkle on when these are done. To start, you'll need your oven preheated to 350 degrees. Combine the flour and butter in a bowl and cut in the butter using either a pastry blender or a fork. Next, blend in the sugar, nutmeg, ginger, cinnamon, and allspice into the flour and butter mixture. In a separate bowl, beat the eggs, vinegar, and milk together. Mix your liquid ingredients into the flour mixture and continue working them until a stiff dough has formed. Knead the dough thoroughly and roll out until 1/4 inch thick. Make sure to flour your work surface and rolling pin, as this makes it easier. Make sure to grease the cookie sheet that you're using as well. Cut the dough into 3-inch rounds and place on the cookie sheet. This recipe should easily net a dozen cakes. Before sticking them in the oven, make sure you prick the top of each cake several times with a fork. You can also go with the traditional All Souls Day look and cut an X or cross pattern into the top of the cakes. Bake the cakes for 20 to 25 minutes. Sprinkle with powdered sugar while they're still warm, though not as heavy-handed as I've done here. Variations on the recipe can include the addition of dried fruits such as cranberries or currants. Much like the soul cakes we've just made, apples have a long traditional role in the Samhain festival. dating back to Celtic Ireland before the Christianization of Europe. The candied apples that we're making today are a much more modern take on the apple as part of this festival and more traditional with current Halloween. For making candy apples, you obviously need apples. We're using some Honey Crisp for this demonstration, but Granny Smith or other firm apples work very well for this. You will also need some popsicle sticks or reasonably sturdy skewers. These bamboo skewers available at the grocery store are a little lightweight for the big apples we have today. The candy coating itself begins with 3 cups of granulated sugar. We'll also need 1 cup of water and 1/2 cup of light corn syrup. At the end of making the candy coating, some food coloring can be added for a custom look to your candied apples. We've gone with classic red. A candy thermometer is an essential tool for this to ensure that you don't overcook your mixture and end up scorching it. The apples at the grocery store come with a waxy coating on them that can make it hard for the candy coating to adhere to them. A produce wash like the fit pictured here easily removes that waxy coating. Making the candy coating is actually real simple. You simply combine the sugar, water, and corn syrup in a saucepan and turn it up over medium to medium-high heat. Make sure while cooking that the candy thermometer is in the liquid but not touching the bottom of the pan to make sure that you're getting an accurate temperature reading. The mixture will begin boiling partway through cooking, but it's not ready until you reach 300 degrees on your candy thermometer. Once the mixture reaches 300 degrees, it needs to be removed from the heat so that you don't overcook and scorch it. It's also at this time that you can add the food coloring, but be very careful as it can spatter back at you. You'll want to dip the skewered apples fairly quickly so that the mixture doesn't cool down too much and become hard again. A cookie sheet covered with wax paper makes an ideal cooling surface for these apples and peels off very easily once they've cooled down completely. The candy shell will actually cool into a Jolly Rancher style hard candy. As you can see, both of these traditional treats are quite easy to make and offer a lot of possibilities for customizing them, be it caramel covered apples or adding fruit into the soul cakes. We hope you've enjoyed this look into the Samhain Festival and how that translated to our modern day Halloween. That's all for this one. Thanks a lot.